Welcome to a Sunny Side Up Life podcast, a show for the woman who is ready to live an abundant life full of freedom and positivity. I'm Sami Vee, and I'm on a mission to help you break free from survival mode, gain financial freedom, stay motivated, and focus on what matters most. Join the movement and let's start living on the brighter side of life together. All right, you guys, I have promised you guys that we are going to talk about this issue for a couple weeks now, and we've been kind of teasing about it on social media. And so I'm really, really excited to have Vee here with me, and we're going to talk about an issue that is so, so important. It's something that is really close to my heart, and I've kind of touched on it in some previous episodes, but we're going to dig into it a little bit more. We're going to talk about dealing with depression and kind of going through the debt-free journey at the same time, and just some of her tips and just some of both of our stories, and we're just going to dig into it for you guys. So tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, say hi, all that good stuff, and then we'll get into like the good stuff.
Okay. Hi guys, I'm really honored to be on Sami's podcast. I've followed her for, oh my God, 2 or 3 years now.
Like forever.
I started my journey January 4th, 2016, and I'm pretty sure you were one of my first follows on there.
Yeah.
Like Amanda and CFO Mom, I think you guys were like the first 3 that I really followed. So it's exciting. I've been on the debt-free journey for 3 years. I've had many ups and downs throughout my journey, and I've been pretty transparent about all of them. Yeah. So I'm kind of an open book in the community, which I hold that like a badge of honor. Some people think it's attention seeking, but I think it's good to be on a platform that I can be myself on. So yeah, I'm 26. I lived in Wilmington, North Carolina my whole life, and I just moved to Columbus, Ohio, and started my own business in February. And I've been kind of a person in the debt-free community for 3 years. So that's
it's like the beginning of the debt-free community before it was even a debt-free community.
Yeah, before we had the hashtag
talking about money.
Yeah, I became super obsessed with it, and then this whole evolution happened, and now we have what we have today.
Yeah. And I was like really just drawn to your page just because, like what you said, like you're transparent, you're honest, you're a cool person to follow. I mean, dogs and tattoos, and I mean, you're just, you're a cool person to follow. And, like me, like us old, boring moms are just like living vicariously. Like you have a social life. No.
I'll be sure to live more on the edge for you.
Thank you. I need you to share more.
I will give my heart and soul to you.
Yes. No, but you were actually one of the people. There was, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 people that I followed on Instagram that were really open about their mental health and everything that goes along with that. And you were one of those people for me that was like made it okay, that made it like not something that you had to be ashamed of, like not something that you needed to hide from. And I was really in this point, which I've talked on the podcast a lot about this over the past few months, but I was kind of at this point, this has been like about 1.5 years ago, little somewhere in there. And where I was just like, I had this moment one day where I asked my sister, when do you know that you need to ask for help? Like, how bad does it need to get before you ask for help? And she just like very seriously looked at me and she was like, right then, that when you have that moment. And for me, it was like, I just remember thinking, well, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, if you wrote out my life on paper, I literally like married my high school sweetheart. I have a better marriage than I ever even thought was possible. I have my kids. I adore being their mother. Mm-hmm. I'm debt free. Like, I have all these things, and I'm just like, there should be nothing wrong with me. I need to just suck it up. Like, why am I not grateful for my life? And I just kept like beating myself up over that.
Depression doesn't discriminate. And I think that, the general populace just doesn't understand is, you could have the quote unquote perfect life, but that doesn't mean brain chemicals recognize that you have a perfect life.
Exactly. And I was just like, and I let it get so out of hand. Like I was not listening to my body at all. And I just kept pushing. And I thought, well, I'll just accomplish more. I'll just keep going through it. Like I need to sleep more. I need to just drink more coffee. I need to just get more done or something and I'll fix it.
Mhm.
And I just kept going and going. And it got to the point where it was physically taking a toll in my body to the point where I literally could not use my left arm for days at a time. I had like a nerve that it was pinching just from sleeping so stressed and like grinding my teeth and clenching my jaw.
Mhm.
And it was all the way down to where I physically could not use my left hand. I was
Mhm.
literally still working, typing with just my right hand.
I think that our society, it tells you to do more, be more
Yeah.
all the time, so that when your body stops, your brain doesn't catch up.
Mm-mm.
If you have this void in your life of, well, I'm obviously not enough because I'm not
Yeah.
doing enough to make my body feel better. So, you get into this loop of just grinding yourself down, trying to fix yourself when it's physically impossible to do that without help.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I really feel like my shoulder getting to the point where I couldn't use it, my whole arm really was the best blessing for me because that got me to go to the doctor. It
Mhm.
wasn't my mental health really that got me to go to the doctor. It was my physical, like, okay, I can't work. I can't lift my kids.
Mhm.
And, well, at the time I had a 2 and a 4-year-old and, cause that was a little over a year ago
Mhm.
and I have to carry both of them still. And you can't lift kids. And then you're like, you're out of commission. And so I went to the doctor and then kind of while I was in there, I was like, well, I've also kind of just like beating around the bush. And my doctor has been in our family, like he's been our family doctor for a long time. He knows my mother, he knows my grandma. And
Mhm.
he's like, we might need to think about some other options. Like obviously we want your shoulder to feel better, but let's talk about what else is going on. And that just kind of led to, and I'd really like you to see a counselor and I'd really like you to get you on this medicine and pushed me and pushed me. And I went to my counselor and I'm like, I go in there and she's literally the sweet. She is the sweetest. She is like the perfect person that I could have imagined. And I'm just like, my life is pretty great. Everyone in my life is super supportive of everything I'm doing. My kids are amazing. I feel really terrible. Why? Like, why am I broken? And I was just like, it's been a whole journey since then. But that topic is just like, it's so close to my heart because to me, I'm a perfectionist. I am a like high achiever, goal oriented, go, go, go. Like just, that is my worth is based on what I can accomplish.
Mhm.
And to like, I don't know, it was all like self-inflicted, I guess. I don't know. But there was a lot of shame around it. Like, I don't want to share. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to be broken. I don't want people to know.
Mhm.
And in my first visit with my counselor, I told her, what I do and everything. And I said, well, I help all these women and I'm really great at sharing about money and I can tell them anything about my money, but like, I can't tell them this. Like, this is
So
shameful.
interesting in society because money is also so taboo.
I know. It's like, I can
It's
talk about money all day.
I know, same thing. But I mean, that's kind of the approach I took. I remember the first time I posted on my finance page about my depression. It was when I had been on Paxil, which is the worst antidepressant to get off of. It's the same brain chemical connection as like heroin. So when you get off of it, you are legit withdrawing. And so for 2 weeks, I was in bed. I couldn't move. I was nauseous. I mean, it was it was
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, on Paxil, I had gained like 20 pounds, which on my frame, I'm 5 foot nothing and
Yeah.
I'm very, very small. I always have been. So I looked like a balloon. And I'm not like fat shaming or anything like that, but for me, like I did not
Yeah.
feel healthy at all. And so I worked my butt off for 3 or 4 months to get that weight off. And I posted a picture of the scale and I was like, I say so much about, I would give you the screenshot of my bank account. So why won't I do this? So I struggle with this. And the response I remember going to bed that night after posting it, and the response I got was just, my inbox blew up.
Yeah.
I mean, I had 15 DMs. I had people commenting so supportive, like so many people saying, I go through this too. I mean, what do you do? How do you do this? Is there anything any tips and tricks you can give me? And that was like the light bulb moment where I was just like, wow, people are yearning for this information. People don't want to be alone. People want a community, just like they want a debt-free community.
Exactly.
But it's stigmatized and weird. People want to talk about their mental health, which is stigmatized and weird. So yeah, I was just like, okay, well, here we go. And so I started talking about my depression, and I started, doing posts about my anxiety. And it got even further to where when I went through abuse and my divorce and my therapy and all of that, I was very transparent about what I was going through. So I just think people really connect to it. And I think that the more people we have that give a voice to the challenges that we face as a people with mental health problems, the better it's going to be for others.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just think, I always kind of feel like if you're going through it, someone else is going through it. Mm-hmm. Like, really, I mean, you're not, like, it's kind of, I mean, not in a rude way, but like, you're not that special. Like, no. Like, you're not the only one that has that problem.
Right. There are 7 billion people in the world.
Yeah.
Like, you're not special.
Yeah.
So
you're special, but you're not.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. It's irony. But yeah, people just want to be a part of something. People and the internet and Instagram give us a way to do that. So why not take advantage of it?
Yeah. And I think like there's so many shallow ways and useless ways to use social media. We might as well use it for something productive. Mm-hmm. We might as well use it for something that's going to help people grow. But I remember you were sharing about your depression, and you were sharing about going to counseling, and it really just like all the stars aligned for me. And it was like a couple of other girls that I follow were all talking about it right at the same time. And I was like, all right, I get it. I see my I see my clue here. Like I need to do this. And I told my counselor on the first day, like I'm telling her everything I do. And I was like, my ultimate goal here is I want to be okay enough that I can share. And I remember going back it was several visits later before I ever told anyone that I was going, like publicly. I guess it sounds weird to say it, but you know what I mean. Yeah. And I told her, I was like, I talked about it in a podcast, and she like started tearing up. She's like, I'm so proud of you. And I was like, well, I just want to help. Like,
yeah. And I feel like with platforms like me and you, like, I mean, it's not like we have, 6-figure followers or anything, but we have a platform where we can elevate the conversation. So why not do that?
Yeah, I mean, really, like if you save one person's life or you change one person's life, like that's enough for me. Yeah, that's kind of how I've always treated like sharing my debt-free journey and all my other things that I share. I'm like, if I influence just one person, I mean, turning one person's life around, that's enough. Like that's plenty. I mean, even just turning my life around, that was plenty actually. And just like everything else is just a cherry on top if I can help other people.
I mean, that's why we all started this. I mean, it's getting here. But like, I started the Instagram blog to help me be accountable. But, now 3 years later, it's amazing the connections I've made, the friendships I've made, the people that I've inspired, that our community has inspired. And I just look at, especially on the mental health side, because obviously I talk about finances way more than I talk about mental health. But I mean, the people that have messaged me, like, I feel like I've made a difference. And that's why I continue to do it. I can talk about the same financial stuff all day long, but the reason I go back to my mental health is because, I'm doing it for other people. And I want to be that effective for somebody, because I know that there's costs, there's barriers to mental health, cost, the ability of therapists, even racial barriers. It varies so widely. I think like health insurance and the cost is the biggest barrier. Mm-hmm. So if I can talk to somebody, not that I'm a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist or anything like that, but if I can talk to somebody and offer support and empathy, why wouldn't I do that? So to those people that have messaged me, like I really remember each and every one of them, and it's been an honor to be able to be open and to inspire people to like have their own voice in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, it's just, you get to a point where like, this is just me and this is what I do. Like I budget, I go to counseling, I do all these things. And you're like, this is just me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like, I don't know, you're not really like even making a big deal about it. It's like, okay, yeah, I share a picture of my dog. So why wouldn't I share this? This
I
is
want it to be
how I am.
like, and that's how it should be. And
Yeah.
it sometimes it annoys me when people are like, "You're so brave." I'm like, this shouldn't be a "you're so brave" moment. This should be like, this is an everyday occurrence
This
because
is just
it's also
me.
me. Yeah, it's always that's always been a funny comment. Like, "You're so
Yeah.
brave." No, I'm just living.
I'm just living. I just happen to like take pictures of it every once in a while. No,
Yeah.
but somebody asked me, I think it was when we shared your guest article from the newsletter. I think it was like on Facebook or something. And somebody asked me like, I can't remember the exact way she worded it, but would you recommend people go to counseling while they're still in debt? Because,
Yeah.
and I said to her, I was like, yeah, I was like, it just so happened that everything happened like after I became debt free. That was just coincidental. I really do think that it had a lot to do with each other. It was kind of that like, like that kind of like after Christmas feeling where you're like lost and you have nothing. Like, well, what do I have to look forward to? And you just kind of wander around for a while till you set like
Especially
New
if you're
Year's goals.
right, especially if you're like a goal oriented person, and then
Yeah.
you're like, oh,
That was
okay,
like my whole identity.
yeah. I remember
And
I became debt
well,
free before I bought my car. I remember that moment. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. Now what?
now who am I? What do I do? And I really do think that it had a lot to do with each other. It was like right around the same time. But anyway, she asked me and I was like, oh yeah, most definitely. And I was like, and if you can't afford to go, I would find a way to go. Like if you need to go enough.
I don't care if you are $3 billion in debt. Your mental health and your
Yeah.
mental stability is more important than money will ever be.
And it's
Period.
not, it's not like a luxury. I don't really treat it like a luxury. I treat it like a doctor. Like I think there's that line. Like it feels like self-care
Mm-hmm.
and it feels like a doctor. So it feels like it's kind of in that middle ground. It's not the
Right.
same as getting your nails done. That's
It's
self-care. That's a luxury. It's
right.
a doctor. If you were like sick in bed with the flu and you needed to get to the doctor, you would just go.
Right.
And I mean, now to the point I feel like it's kind of more of like a maintenance mode, which I only go like once every 4 weeks now.
Right.
So that's a little,
I mean, it's a health expenditure.
yeah. And that's
And
exactly how we treat it. And I never questioned it. I never like asked my husband's permission if I was going to go. I wouldn't have asked permission if I like had the flu. So I kind of think of it the same way. I'm sick. I'm going to a doctor.
yeah, it's not like you're buying a $200 thing on Amazon.
Yeah.
Like
It's
having
not frivolous.
a provider is essential, and spending that money on yourself. I mean, you're keeping yourself alive. Like, how are you
Yeah.
gonna get your financial goals if you're not around?
Yeah, and that's exactly, the way I put it to him. And for us, like we have pretty decent insurance through my husband's job. But we didn't have any counselors or therapists in our area that it covered. So we pay all of the counselor fees out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
But it does pay a lot of my prescription and I'm very, very thankful for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that it was a little bit of a question. I was like, hey, we're going to have to pay for this. And, when I was first going, I was going once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And so that gets a little expensive, but we sat down, we kind of had the discussion. It wasn't really asking permission, but it was more of it's a discussion.
It's like, how are we gonna do this?
Yeah. And I said, I have to show up for you guys. Like I have to show up as a wife and a mother and as a human being and as a person.
Yourself. Like,
Yeah.
you're you without
Yeah.
those labels and without those jobs, and without those attachments. Like, mental health is a you thing too, and it's
Yeah.
you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah. And that was one of the first things that I had to learn was like, got to take care of yourself first. If you ever want to help anyone else, your husband, your children, the women in your audience, like whoever it is, gotta take care of myself first. And now I'm really like, I'm to the point where I'm the opposite. I used to be like, I had to force myself to have like off time, like downtime. And now I'm like, I got to force myself to get back to work. Cause I'm like, I kind of like just chilling now. This is nice.
Yeah, I've definitely felt the same way. I think the transition from going to UNC and being in such a stressful marriage, like now, I had to learn all that self-care after the fact, after all the stress, and I learned those coping mechanisms. And now I'm like, oh, okay, got to pump out some blog articles, got to help my clients, but I really just kind of want to like relax and be zen for a little bit longer, because when you don't take care of yourself, all of your relationships deteriorate.
Yeah.
Because they love you for you. And if you lose your way, how are you going to help them?
Yeah. And I've seen myself show up a million times better for especially myself, but everyone else as well. And so it's been a fun journey, I guess. That's a really weird way to say that.
No, it's not weird. I know a lot of your audience, they're moms, and
yeah,
I think as women, even if you don't have children, the thought of putting yourself first is stress inducing on its own. But I mean, I think as a gender, we really need to just elevate ourselves to that level of thinking, to where, I need to take care of me. I need to love me, because if I don't, no one else is going to love me, and no one else is going to know how to love me. So how do I get there? And I think that's, a much larger conversation about society, which we could totally get into. Yeah. But yeah, I just think self-care, self-love, and health is so important. Your financial status really, like in the debt-free community, like baby step status, shouldn't matter. It shouldn't. Now with insurance, I've been on both ends of that spectrum. I don't have any health insurance right now because I just started my own business, and that's a next year's goal, is to be able to afford my own health care, which, knock on wood, will definitely happen. But then I've been on TRICARE, which pays for all the things. And then I've, had Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, which is pretty good health insurance, and pays for the majority of things. So, I just think that if you're in the position and you need the help, absolutely do it and budget for it and make sure that you're taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, kind of going along the lines of like asking for help, and, I think that if your money isn't aligned where you can do it, that needs to be your motivation. Mm-hmm. And like, you need to find a way to get to that point, and
even if you can't see a traditional therapist, there are these apps out there. I think BetterHelp is one of them. They're less expensive. I think it's like, don't quote me on this, but I think it's like $60 a month, which is, I mean, $60 for, I used to pay $75 per therapy visit. So it's cheaper than a lot of the traditional methods. And if you can't afford that, there are forums online. There are people you can connect to, and it might not be the professional help, but if you can't get professional help, that's another route that you can take. There's always an option. There's always an answer to your question. Yeah. And I definitely think like that should be your motivation. I mean, getting health insurance is a motivation for my bottom line of my business. Like, I want to make enough money to where I don't have to worry about my health care anymore. Yeah. So, and it drives me. It truly does, because, I love therapy. I think every human on the planet should be in therapy.
Oh, I absolutely love it. Like, I thought I was going to hate it and I was going to dread it. And there were a couple of days where I was like, well, like my grandma passed recently, and I was super dreading the session right after that, because I was just like, I really don't want to cry about this again. I actually ended up only kind of tearing up. Like I did good. I didn't like totally go in there and just like blubber all over the place, but I was that was like the time that I dreaded the most. I was like, I just like started to be okay over the weekend, and now I got to go in and drag all this stuff back up. But other than that, I'm like, I go in there and it's like a comfortable place to sit down. Like, she has blankets. I take my coffee. She's got like essential oils going. And I'm just like can I just stay in here? Like,
this is my space now.
There are no children in here. And I literally, like, I'll just go in like sweatpants and I'll take my coffee and I just go in there and just chill and talk to someone for an hour and drink coffee.
It really does help. Like
so nice.
It blows my mind how much it helps. And I really do miss that. And I'm glad that I'm in a space where I don't need it anymore. Yeah. But it's still like you, I would like to have the option to go once a month.
Yeah, like I'm feeling so much better. And so I'm just kind of, going like once every 4 weeks. And she's like, you still good? You want to come back next 4 weeks? I'm like, I want to come back tomorrow and just hang out in this quiet room.
For free.
Yeah. But I think like, one of the things that you had mentioned in your guest blog post that we kind of what got us like motivated to do this interview and share this podcast with everyone was, we mentioned like asking for help, and that can come in a lot of different forms. So what are some of your pieces of advice for like asking for help and along kind of those lines?
I mean, it depends on your situation and what you need help with. Like, I know that when I'm depressed, it's something very simple, but like I don't keep track of like me showering or me eating. Like sometimes I'll just work, and I just like won't shower that day, or I just won't put anything in my body that day. And so I will ask someone close to me, like, hey, can you text me and remind me to like go eat breakfast?
Yeah.
Or, like, take a shower today, you stinky.
I literally will have to put like shower on my to-do list when I'm having like a really rough day, or put like eat on my to-do. And it seems so silly, like when you say it out loud, like, but it's, I don't know. There's something about it where you're like, I don't even care about myself. I don't even care how I look, how I feel. I don't even want to eat. Like, I don't even care.
Because you're so busy fighting what you're fighting inside.
Yeah.
Anything external just takes so much energy. Like, I liken it to the flu. Like, you just feel so drained. You can't.
Yep.
And so that's one of the things. And another thing that my friends and my mom actually we've done together is like, if you just can't clean your house, like for me, when I get very depressed, my space gets very cluttered. Like, you can basically walk into my house and my office and see where I'm at mentally, because things will be displaced, disorganized, messy if I'm just in a low point. And so my mom and my best friend Kaylee, we'd come over, we'd clean together, put on some music, and then we'd have coffee or eat together. And they would just help me and lift me up. Like, you have to take your support where you can get it. So friends, family. And if you don't have those two things, the debt-free community, honestly, like I put it in the guest post, like I would have given up a long time ago financially if I didn't have those people to look up to. Because every step of the way, no matter where I was, like in college, just married, separated, divorced, new business, new town, all through all of that, everybody's been so supportive. And, I would ask different people, different opinions if I couldn't, I don't know, fix a budget line item in my head, right? Or, I'd ask opinions on what they would do in a situation. And I just think the support around you, either virtually or physically, is so important to the healing process and to being able to accept where you are in your mental state.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, like, asking for help is my hardest thing to do. I'm the oldest child. I'm like the person in the family that's supposed to have it all together. And that's a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. And I'm that person at home as well. Mm-hmm. And especially when my husband's at work and I'm the only adult for 3 weeks. And it's just like, I have to be the only adult. But as my girls are getting older, my oldest is 8 now, and she is amazing. Like, she's my little adult sometimes, and she really helps get through some stuff. And I try to be really honest without like putting too much on her, but that's a whole nother parenting topic. But without putting too much on her, I try to be pretty honest with her. I'm like, Mama's having a rough day. I really need your help to do this. And I don't like really beat around the bush. I'm like, and she's she loves to cook, and she's a really great cook for an 8-year-old. And she makes sandwiches, she makes scrambled eggs, she makes tons of like easy things. She's even made like tacos and like chili, like
Wow.
she's getting to that level.
Heck yeah, mom.
I'll be really honest with her. If I need her to pick up the slack for me, I'm like, hey, can you make your sister's lunch? Like, mama's kind of tired. Or like, can you run the vacuum? And her kind of, like she'll get up, she'll vacuum, and I'm like, okay, she's doing that. That'll motivate me to do something.
Yeah.
And I try to be pretty honest with the girls about where I need their support. And we kind of just know, we just know, like with our life situation, with Daniel's work schedule, that's how our life is for 3 weeks. The 4 of us like depend on each other when he's not here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very like honest with them, and I ask them for help. And I don't feel like, hey, we all live here. And the 5-year-old and the 3-year-old, like they can pick up and they can put groceries away and they can, do little chores and easy stuff.
I think like the house stuff is gonna, as they grow up, it's gonna become something easier on you. But those conversations are some that I wish I had growing up. In my house, it was very it was stigmatized. Like we just didn't talk about it until I was 16 and I had my first like mental break. And that's kind of when the conversation began to shift in my household, because they were like, oh, she needs help, like she's not normal, until I realized later in life that actually my dad had depression and anxiety and my mom had depression and anxiety. It was never talked about. So I think what you're doing is really it's really good for your girls. It's only going to help them in life.
And we try to, I try to be really honest with, like, they know when I go to counseling, and usually my mom has to come over and babysit, and we'll talk about it. And my 5-year-old, she was like, what is counseling again? Like I have to remind her like every time. And I was like, it's basically like the doctor for your brain. And she's like, oh, okay. I kind of just hit. And, I've talked more to June about it because she's older and she understands. And I was like, you have a lot of stress in your life, and it's okay to ask for help and to, all that. So I try to be really vocal with them and take the stigma away from it as much as possible. And another thing my counselor told me, she was like, they need to see you being real. And it's just like sharing on social media. Like people need to know that you're a real human, that you have flaws, you have struggles, and like your kids need to see that as well. And that's something that I've struggled with, but I am getting better with it.
Yeah, and it's all a journey. It's all a process. It's something that you have to recalibrate every day, sometimes moment to moment. So no one's perfect, especially when it comes to mental health and your journey with you. Especially with major depressive disorder, which is what I have. It's an oscillating thing. Some days you're totally fine. Other days you literally can't lift your head out of bed. And you just give yourself the grace that you're not going to be perfect.
Yep. And you're just like, hey, if we all survive this day, it's going to be fine.
And so far, I've survived 100% of my bad days.
Yep.
So keeping on.
Yep. Some days are just crappier than others, and you just, you get through it. But so I love how, like, in going back to the guest blog, and it was just so it was just so well written. And so let's share some more of your tips more on the money side of it, because it's like, okay, I'm already going through a lot mentally, and now you expect me to like take on this huge journey, this huge like pile of debt or whatever, this huge financial situation, just put it on top of everything I'm already going through. Like that's a lot. And I think that it's probably something that holds people back from ever starting, or trips people up partway through. It's hard.
And it was hard. That's definitely how I thought of it in the beginning and throughout the middle.
And all the time. No.
And all the time. Yeah. No. I think that my biggest advice, just physically, is to not see it as a big pile of debt. Like what really, really helped me was what was the baby steps, like taking it one step at a time. And I think that's why I lashed myself onto the Dave Ramsey plan, because it made sense to me. Like, why would I look at, I think it was $60,000 in that at the time, when I could just focus on my first debt was $1,000 to UNC. Like, I could get rid of that. That's no big deal. Like, and then I had a timeline of when I could get rid of that. Like, and breaking it up really helped me, and it made me not feel so overwhelmed. I will say though, like before payday, like I'd get anxious. I would wake up early. Like when I'm talking early, I'm talking like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
to see that it posted so that I could like pay it immediately and be like, "Oh, done. Okay, now to wait another 2 weeks."
I still like, even like today was payday for us, and I woke up like 45 minutes before my alarm went off, and I'm not even in debt anymore, but I'm like, okay, I just want to see how much, and I don't know, but yeah, that was something that was really helpful for me. And I think another reason we kind of, which a lot of people do, but we basically did the Dave Ramsey plan, and of course, like interpreted it in our own way, which is how most people do it, because a lot of life happened, and but I think it was like the no nonsense, like do it in these steps, and I need that like no nonsense, black and white, like do it with these rules kind of thing. Like that really helped me in the beginning and helped me like take it step by step, and writing out like a timeline. I am such a freak about like planning. So in those couple of weird days between like Christmas and New Year's, I will like post up and just like put on some good chill music and some coffee, and I will plan out my entire year budget. At least roughly. And obviously like things change. But my husband's pay schedule is pretty predictable. His work schedule is pretty predictable. And so we can more or less do it. And that's what I do. That's what I do. And so that really helps a lot of the anxiety.
Yeah, that's actually something that's really, I put in my blog post. Like, I'm a person, when everything else in my life goes awry, to say it in a very nice podcast friendly way. I feel like okay, what can I control? I can control my budget. I can control numbers. I can see everything line by line written on a piece of paper, and I can manipulate that to make it what I want. And so usually when I am super stressed and depressed, you'll find me like on my Mint app or like writing down budgets or like typing about money.
It's something
that I can physically control. So yeah, I think like even if people think that it's, I don't know the word for it, anal retentive, like I don't know, people think it's crazy, but for me, like that part actually helped me get rid of some of my anxiety for sure.
It does help me, and it's just like, even sometimes I'll get anxious, and you know, other things are out of my control. So even just like logging into my bank account and being like, okay, it's still there, and then just log out just real quick. I mean, you're in control of something. And
like today.
and you know, and I tell people this about their spending all the time, especially their spending. Obviously you have control over your bills to a certain extent, but your spending is where you really, really have the most control. And like, it's up to you what you have for dinner and how much it cost. And I feel like that gave me so much power, because I was like, okay, I can control this. This is up to me. If I choose to go out to eat or choose to stay home, that's my choice. And so when you feel like super out of control in so many other aspects of your life, you at least have control over that.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely what made me addicted, quote unquote, to the debt community. It's knowing that, you know, these decisions throughout time, it's what sets you up for success. So I really attached myself to it. And I decided pretty early on, like, you know, no matter what's going on in my life, this is being financially secure and being financially literate is going to be a priority for me. And since then, I mean, it's something that I think has helped my depression overall.
Yeah. And I think I'm a very like future focused person. And so it's very hard for me to be present
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot of what drove my anxiety, because I'm always like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, instead of like right now.
Yeah.
And so I kind of had this epiphany a while back that I realized I thought that I was saving for the future.
Mm-hmm.
What I kind of realized is I'm actually saving for the present as well as the future, because it brings me present peace.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm saving for like this future goal in the future. And so I always thought that it was, everything about budgeting was future. Like, okay, your debt, you're paying off your past. And then like you're saving for the future. And you never get to be present. And it just made me feel so anxious. And I was like, wait, when I actually am saving, it actually is bringing me present peace. Like when my budget is balanced, when everything is where it should be money wise, it actually is present. And that just like, I don't know why that took me so long to realize, but it was just really like an epiphany kind of light bulb moment. I was literally washing the dishes when I thought of this.
Wait a minute.
I was just like, I don't even know what got me to think about that, but it was just funny. So I kind of like switched my focus to that of it actually is present. It actually is focusing on the present as well. Not really brought me a lot of peace. So maybe that'll help someone else.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you have to shift your perspective. Like, being that sucks. Saying no sucks. Staying at home and cooking rice and beans for the God knows how many times you've done it sucks.
Yep.
But having control over what you're doing now so that you can thank yourself later, that is something that you cannot put a price tag on.
Yeah.
And, I look at some people in my life and I think, if they would have just educated themselves or had the opportunities that I've been afforded to know about finances, like how different their world would look now, especially with health. I mean, if they had the financial opportunities or fortitude to do what I've been able to do in my life, I think some people would have been around much longer. So, it's very, very combined. I don't know where I was going with that, but
yeah, it makes sense though.
yeah.
But also I love how in that guest post we were talking about, saving, and I kind of loved your perspective on how saving is actually a form of self-care and how it really does like go together.
Yeah, I mean, so you were talking about how social media can be very surface level and petty, and you see the gorgeous stiletto nails and the beautiful bubble baths and the trips to, I don't know, Venice, I don't know,
everywhere fancy.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you like that's all crap, because it's not. Like, getting your nails done, I love it. I actually just did. My parents visited me and I got my nails done. And I was like, you know what? Treat yourself.
Yep.
Going on trips. Like, vacations are necessary. And bubble baths, they relax me. So kudos to you. But what you don't understand is, working out, saving, budgeting, all of that is self-care too, because it's taking you as a priority and your future as a priority. So, I've never been a fan of Dave Ramsey's saving methods, which is not a surprise to anybody if they've followed me for a long time. Just because I've seen so many people get messed up from it. We live in a day and age where $1,000, in my opinion, just does not cut it.
No.
So, I think it's my philosophy that you should always save money, even if I don't care if it's $5 a paycheck, always save money, because, when you get into a place that you need therapy and you need to dip into your savings account, you're going to be very thankful that you saved that $5. I was so thankful when I had my money that was over $1,000. So, I think that no matter what financial situation you're in, you should always save money, and it is a form of self-actualization and self-love. And it might not be as Instagram worthy as the manicure and bubble bath, but it's still something that's really imperative.
Yeah, I agree. And I always tell everyone, to each his own. Like, you do what feels like is enough. Like in your, as far as like your emergency fund and all of that kind of stuff, like pick a number that feels like that's your number.
God,
And
not the
for
Bible.
us, like when we first started, we actually like saw the $1,000, and we had gone several years with not even having a savings account at all. And we saw $1,000, and our first thought was like, that's so much money. It'll take us forever. And so
How your perspective shifts.
we kind of went the opposite way at first. And our first few months, like we just had 500 because we're like, it's 500. That's a ton of money. Well,
Yeah.
first emergency came up and it was an $800 emergency. And we were like, oh, oops. and then, and then we switched it to 1,000. And I don't know. I think we usually stayed right around 1,000, I think. But we actually like usually kept ours in cash and just like in a fireproof safe box. And there was something so like, it just felt so much more powerful knowing that I had that cash. The bank didn't have it. No one could take it away from me. Like it was physically there. That's how much issues I had with like debt collectors and like freezing accounts and like, that's my PTSD like coming through.
So no, I mean, I think that $1,000 is good in some cases. I mean, I kind of based it on my pay scale, what my household brought in. So I would say between $1,000 and $3,000 should take care of anything that you have come up. I base that off of like, if your transmission blows tomorrow, like, are you going to be able to take care of that? So I mean, that's kind of the transmission. When I didn't have a house, that was like my metric of emergency fund. And then my HVAC was the other one, because it's like in North Carolina, you're in Texas. So in North Carolina, if your AC goes, I don't care who you are, you're buying a new one no matter what account number.
I don't care. I
don't care. That is like, I will die of heat. So those are kind of like my metrics.
My transmission went out once. Luckily that was like towards the end of our debt free, and we had all we had left was our house. So we had like we had like 5-month emergency fund at that point. But now we actually have like, we keep 5,000 in our local bank account where we can just transfer it instantly. And then we have another 10 in our Ally, and that's our emergency fund now. But even that 5, I needed that 5 in my local. Like that feels like that's like my real legit emergency fund. I don't ever plan on touching that other 10. My 5, I do dip into here and there. Like we just got our boat fixed and it was more than we thought it was going to be. So I dipped into that. That's my like, close by emergency fund. And 5 seems like not very much now. So that's where I've gone.
It also changes like when like children really change your
and having like back then we only had one vehicle. We had no boats, no nothing. So now we have 2 vehicles and a boat and a camper, and we have 3 children when we only had 1. So it's like, okay, $500 to a $5,000 emergency fund, and they feel equally as comfortable. You know what I mean? Like me 5 years ago thought $500 was a lot of money.
Perspectives change, life changes. So I think that's a very like,
I feel like, who cares? Like no one is gonna, like, there's no like debt-free journey police that's gonna be like, hello, like knock on your door. You didn't save enough for your emergency fund, or you saved too much for your emergency fund.
I mean, it is my perspective that you can never have enough in your emergency fund, just because I have been in many life situations where I could have benefited from having as much as possible. So that's why I'm very adamant about my save.
I'm very adamant about like, you do it your way. I tell people the same thing about like their order they pay off their debt. Like, well, what do you think? Should you do like snowball or avalanche, or what about, this or that? Or I'm like, you know what? Just pick an order and just pay it off.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
I did the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. I did debt snowball up into my last 2, which was a car payment and my student loan. And I just decided like, I wanted to own my degree. There was nothing more important to me than owning that piece of paper.
Yeah.
I switched up the method, but
I think that like at the end of the day, if you end up debt free, that was the goal.
Right.
And, again, like there's no debt-free police that's going to come knock on your door and it's like, you're doing them in the wrong order. It doesn't, just like do an order, write out your order and then just go with it. Like
so many people have done different orders. I know that Ash Smashes Debt. She read I can't remember the book, but it was basically pay off your debt in order of which one you hate the most.
I will really tell people that too. Like if people are really wondering, I'm like, which one keeps you up at night? You know, if that's the one. And for us, like we waited our big credit card, which was like 12,000 was like one credit card. It was like our last consumer debt to pay off, but in a lot of ways, I kind of wish I would have paid it off sooner, but actually keeping it towards the end kept me motivated because I was like, I got to keep going so I can get to that because I absolutely hate that credit card and it needs to go away.
That interest amount. Like, yeah, I was so happy to be credit card debt free. It was wonderful. And I'll never go back. I don't think.
It's still like, it was a Discover card and still anytime I see like a Discover card, like ad or anything,
like PTSD,
I still cringe. I'm like, I can't. I just bad vibes for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, so anything else that we forgot to mention? I feel like we could just like keep going and going and going.
Yeah, I could probably talk for another couple of hours. No, I mean, check into my Instagram. I usually talk about what I'm going through pretty openly. And if you ever want to talk to me, my messages are open and I'm willing to discuss anything and everything, especially mental health and finance related. Other than that, just keep on listening to Sami's podcast because it's amazing and a revelation and I love it.
And it'll help you get through mentally and financially and all the things.
Yeah, and you're just very relatable and I'm really glad you're doing this. So
thank you. I'm probably the only person that could giggle the whole time talking about debt and depression. Like probably the two most serious things that you're going to talk about. And I can't help it. That's just how I deal with things. I'm annoyingly positive.
Oh no. I mean, people need to be more positive, especially in today's climate. So.
But I just think that really my mindset behind all of it is that, I feel like if I can admit that I have depression, I have anxiety, I've been in debt, like all these things that I feel like are so taboo to talk about, and I can come out the other end of it. I'm laughing about it now. Like there's hope for just about anyone.
Oh, there is so much hope. I mean, I look at my journey the last 2 years, and if I can get through the storms that I've been through, so can you. And I'm willing to talk about it any day, any night. Just give me a shout. So
yeah, I just think our main goal with sharing this episode was just to tell people, that you're not alone. And obviously you're not alone in your debt because that's why we have the debt-free community, but you're also not alone in your depression or feeling like your depression is just like another weight on top of your debt, on top of like trying to get it together, and that there are things that you can do and there are people that you can reach out to and all of that. So thank you so much for hanging out and being on the podcast. Such a joy. Of course, we'll have all of your links and everything in the show notes. We're going to link to the guest article that you wrote, kind of just basically the same outline, but a little bit of different wording. So it's also worth checking out and all that good stuff. So thank you again so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Yes, you guys make sure to share this episode. You never know who needs to hear this message. Subscribe if you haven't already and leave us a review. And thank you so much for hanging out with us. And I will talk to you guys next week. Bye, guys.